We're here today to talk about leaks in a pond. Not L-E-E-K, L-E-A-K. One is a plant, one is the loss of water. And that's a big question that we get this time of year, especially now after the hard freeze we've had, simply because a lot of pipes may have broken and you're not able to tell where they're leaking. So some things that we look for first is if you let the water drain down in the pond until it stops, we know the leak is somewhere around that line. That makes it pretty easy, not really, but that makes it easier to find out where the leak is. First, I want to talk about some common reasons why you think you have a leak. Number one is evaporation. Most people don't realize how much water we lose due to the sunlight, the wind, and the humidity. In Oklahoma, if you look at the weather on television at night and they tell you that we have a drought going on in the area, guess what? That means the air is dry, and that means that there's going to be a lot of water sucked up into the atmosphere. So you want to look out for evaporation first and make sure that's not happening. Second, you want to look for any plants that might have sent roots over the edge of your liner and are drawing water out of your pond to grow. If so, just cut those roots off so that you don't have one of those plants trying to suck water out of your pond. Those are two big things you can check pretty easily. After that, you start getting a little more difficult. On this pond, we have a stream over here, and that stream is a likely culprit probably 7 out of 10 times in the calls that we get. Because it's so inviting to little people to get in, walk across, for you to get in and walk across, for your dogs to get in and walk across, and they dislodge rocks, which causes water to go out of the stream bed where we don't want water to go. That you may be able to determine by looking up closely at each side of the stream and making sure there's no wet spots that shouldn't be there. Now, unfortunately, most of you are going to call after a rainstorm and you can't tell whether the ground is wet or not. So wait till it dries out and then check to see if you've got any water coming out. The other place we check next is on top of a waterfall where we have a filter. This one is covered with a large flat rock, but there's a filter under there that oftentimes has media inside it. And those filter pads and media can get so clogged up that they tilt up with the flow of the water. And that allows the water to flow out somewhere it's not supposed to. Instead of all coming out the waterfall, some of it runs off the back edge or the side. And you can't see that from where you normally look at your waterfall. So you want to check that next to make sure. Finally, if you turn off your stream and allow the pond to sink down to the depth that it's going to lose water, then you can determine that it's not in your plumbing, that that's not happening. It's somewhere inside your pond. It's not the plumbing between the pump and the top of your waterfall or the top of your stream. So now we've taken the plumbing out of the issue, so we can look now around here. This becomes very tedious, because the problem is the hole can be very tiny, but over a 24-hour period it can account for a huge loss in water. So you're going to have to get in there, move those rocks out of the way if you have rocks along the side of your pond, and inspect that very closely. It's pretty wise to have one of those little 3M scrubby pads in your hand, because you're going to have to scrub some of the calcium and lime off of that liner as you go, trying to find the hole that's causing the leak in your pond. It's not difficult, but it is really pretty simple if you follow those steps. Now, most of you are looking for professional help, and you would ask for a contractor to come out and help you find your leak. That probably is the last thing you should do after you've exhausted all of these possibilities I've just talked about, because you're going to be paying him by the hour or by the day to come out and do those things. And those things can take hours and days to figure out. So you're going to have an astronomical bill if you have a contractor come and do that. So the simple solution is call a contractor. That's the most expensive and probably the last one you want to resort to. The first thing is to check for evaporation, look for plant roots, and then inspect your equipment. Make sure that the waterfall and the stream are not running out of their banks the way they're supposed to. And as in this case, they have let the water drain down, and now we look at the skimmer over here, and the water is right at the faceplate of the skimmer. So that's a likely suspect. That's somewhere we would start looking for that leak to determine if it's one of the screws, for instance, that wasn't tightened or doesn't have silicone on it to seal it good. Something that causes us to suspect that that liner around that skimmer has had something happen to it. In this case, we can see rocks that have been moved by the public getting in this pond. At home, it's your grandchildren that do it. At least they do at my house. And you'll find that sometimes a rock has been displaced and the water is now seeping out around where that rock used to seal up the place where it sat. But once the liner has been exposed to ultraviolet rays, it becomes a little stiff. And that stiffness, where there's a wrinkle, can cause almost a knife blade edge. With a rock on top of it, it's protected. When that rock is moved and somebody steps on it and moves that edge, they could cause the hole to occur right there at that break. So that's something you want to look for as you inspect around your skimmer. But those are the steps you need to go through to look and see if you can find anything wrong before you call a contractor in. Once you do that, or if you choose to do it yourself, there are patch kits available for the EPDM rubber liner that most ponds are lined with. If yours happens to be one of those that has vinyl or has a polyethylene liner in it, then those are different sealing materials that are needed. So a typical seal kit for rubber liner won't work on the others. Now you've had success and you found the hole or the tear in the liner that you can fix, and it's time to go find a patch kit. Contact your local retailer, they can help you with it.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.